Hi. So in this lecture, we will look at loops, but in a different way. So the syntax will be a little different, but we'll be able to achieve the same thing, right? So these loops are called for loops. Okay. So the way for loops work in Python, they're a little different from the way they work in C++, Java, or a C type of language, right? So generally, syntax of for loop, again, it's a loop, right? It's used for doing something repeatedly. So the syntax for a for loop will be something like this: for I in X will do something. What this basically means is X will be a sequence. That means X is a collection of multiple things at one place. So let's say X is a collection. We'll figure out how to make collections and what collections are. One kind of collection that we already know is basically a string, right? So a string is multiple characters put together form a string. And we already have worked with strings a little bit, right? So string is a sequence, and there will be a multiple examples of sequences that we'll see later on. For example, we'll see lists, arrays, we'll see dictionary, we'll see all of these, and then we will be able to use them as a sequence in place of X. Okay, so just for now, when you think of X, think of a string there. So what this syntax basically means is, in this sequence, for I in X, in this sequence, I want to go through each of these characters one by one. So basically, I'm looping through all the elements of my sequence. So I will first take A as a value, then B, then C, then D. I'll go till H, and then the loop will stop. Okay, so pretty straightforward, a very intuitive way of running a loop. So basically what it is saying is, I have 10 things and I want to do something for all of them. So one by one, I'll pick each element of my sequence and I'll do some repeated work on that. Okay, so X is a sequence and I is basically one element of that sequence at any time. So first it'll pick the first element of the sequence, then the second element of the sequence, and then eventually the last element of the sequence, and at that point my for loop will finish its work. Okay, perfect. So first let's try to do something for a string. Let's try to run this for loop for a string, and then we will start looking at all the while loops that we have used so far. We have used them for numbers. We had I is equals to 1, we wanted I to go till 10 or 15, so we are using a while loop for that. So we will see how to use for loop with numbers. Okay, for now, let's start with running this on a string. Perfect. So let me create a new notebook. Let's call it for loop. Let's say I have a string. Sorry. Say I have a string ABCD. And now, when I say for C in S, right? I was just a temporary, like I was just a variable name. So I can take C to be the variable. Nothing about that. So for character C in string S, what I want to do is, let's say I just want to print C. So what I'm expecting to happen, what I'm expecting to see here is that we will go through first A, then B, then C and D. So C will take these values, and when you will print it, it should basically print it in a new line, because by default, it prints to a new line. Okay, and that's exactly what is happening. The syntax is extremely simple. You have a sequence. Sequence means like multiple elements put together, and when you apply a for loop on that, it will basically go through each element one by one. Okay, so that's how you can do it for a string. Perfect. So now how do we do it for a number? How do we run a for loop for a number? Let's print the first n natural numbers using for loop. Okay, so I'll take n as input from the user. I'll take n as the input from the user. Now I need to print numbers from 1 to n. Okay, let's first print numbers from 0 to n, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so what I need to do is, for I in, I need a sequence here, and ideally that sequence should contain numbers from 0 to n, right? That's something that I want. I want a collection which should have elements from 0 to n, and then I would like to, let's say this is x. Now I'll say x, and as soon as I'll do that, I'll get all the elements one by one. But how do we create this collection of elements from 0 to n? To do so, we'll use a method called range. The range method basically takes 3 arguments. Start, like the way print had 2 things. We were able to pass a string which we wanted to print, and we had an optional thing that we could have passed to print method, that was end. So we could tell it how to end my print statement for that particular call of print method, right? So in case of range, we have three things: start, stop, and stride. Okay. Start means where should I start from? So in our case, we want to start from, we are printing numbers from 0 to n. So start will be 0 because I want to start from 0. I want to stop at n. And stride is basically how do you want to reach from 0 to n? Do you want to go to 0, then 2, then 4, and then 6? Or do you want to go to 0 to 3, 3 to 6? Do you want to increment by 2? Do you want to increment by 3? Do you want to increment by 1? How much do you want to increment it by? I think I want to increment it by 1. So I want to start from 0. I want to go till n, and I want an increment of 1. So that's what stride is. Okay. So basically, I'll say for I in range 0 to n with an increment of 1, I want to run this. And range will basically give you, somehow will give you a collection which basically will have numbers from 0 to n. Not really, there is a slight mistake here, but we'll correct that. Okay. So let's just print I, because we have to print. We have to eventually print numbers from 1 to n, and we will do that. But right now we're doing 0 to n. We're trying to do it from 0 to n. 4. So I gave the input to be 4, and it has printed 0, 1, 2, 3. It has not printed 4. It has printed 0, 1, 2, 3. So one catch here is it does not go till stop. It just stops before the stop. So basically it's going to go from start to stop minus 1. So it will stop at one place before that. So start is included. It starts from start, but it does not go till stop. It stops just before the stop, whatever you provide. Okay, it just stops before that. Okay, perfect. So a simple solution will be that I want to go till n plus 1. If I say go till n plus 1, it's not going to go till n plus 1, it's going to stop at n. So that ways I will get my required numbers from 0 to 4. Okay, but we have to do from 1 to n, not 0 to n. So we can just change this to 1. So that ways now it will go from 1 to 4. It will not go from 1, it will not start from 0, it will start from 1 because we have changed the start of our method. So this method is taking 3 values from us: start, stop, and the stride. Actually, one thing that you can do here, okay, let me try this again. Let's do some experimentation. Okay, if you want, you can just give it one argument. You don't have to give 3 numbers, you can just give 1 number. And by default, it will pick some values. Okay, so I gave it 4, so it went from 0 to 4. So by default, start is 0, and by default, so this is similar to how by default for print end is equal to a new line. A new line character is represented by /n. Okay, so by default for end, new line is by default for print, end is new line. So by default start is 0 and stride is 1. We can also call it step, right? We can also call it step. So by default the step is 1. So start is by default 0 and step is by default 1. Okay, let's do some experimentation. Okay, so what happens if I give it only 2 arguments? So this is fine, right? This is fine. So here we are giving all 3 values to range, right? We have given all 3 values to range. Here only 1 value to range, and it uses it as stop, and by default 0 for start and 1 for step, right? 1 is for step. But let's try one more time. This time let's try to give it 2 numbers, right? Let's try to give it 2 numbers. So what happens now? So it didn't do anything for us, right? It didn't do anything for us. It didn't print anything. So, okay, let me try this way. And now it gave 1 to 4. I think what has happened is, by default, if you give 2 values, it takes the first one to be start, so it got start as 1, and it takes the second one to be stop, so stop becomes this, and by default the step is always 1. So if you give two arguments, those two arguments are used as, the first one is used for start and the second one is used for stop. So only two values to range, and it uses the first argument as start and second as stop, and step is by default 1. And that's why what happened is, we actually, when we gave range to be n plus 1 to 1, then what were we saying? Hey, you need to start from 5, go till 1 by increasing by 1. That's not going to happen, right? You cannot go from 5 to 1 by increasing 1 in 5. So if start is this and stop is this, it's not going to do anything. It's like saying I is equals to 5 while I less than 1, do something. Obviously that's not going to work, because that's not going to run the loop. It's fine, you can do it, but it's not going to run the loop, because you're starting with a bigger number, and that number in the first step itself is not less than 1, so while is not going to run. That's exactly the same thing that happened here. So if you give two argument, it works fine, right? And it by default takes the step to be 1. So this basically means, if I'm giving three arguments, these three arguments are used as start, stop, and step. If I'm giving two args, they are used as start and stop, and this will be 1. Step will become 1 by default. If I'm giving only one argument, start will become 0, stop will be the argument that you're giving, and the step will by default will be 1. So that's what's going to happen with range method that we have. Okay, so now let's just do one more thing. Let's try to print numbers from n to 1, the opposite, right? So I'll take input numbers from n to 1, and now I want to start from n, so start will be n. I want to stop at 1, right? I want to stop at 1, and I want to decrement by 1, so my step is actually minus 1. Again, there is a small mistake. We'll see what that mistake is. Let's print I. Okay, so it prints 432, exactly the way it did not print n when we were going from 1 to n, because it stops at stop minus 1 just before the actual stop. Here also it's not going to go till 1, it's going to just stop just before that. It's going to just stop just before that. So if you actually want it to go till 1, then you need to provide 0. Then it will stop at 1. Right? So you need to just go one number ahead to stop at just before that. Right? So now if you do it, it's going to go till 4321. Okay? So you need to go through 4321. So it's basically what it is doing is, if you want to stop at 4 and you're coming from this direction, then you need to provide 5. If you want to stop at 4 and you're coming from this direction, then you need to provide 3. Right? It'll stop just before reaching the actual destination. Okay, so if you're coming from this way, you need to provide 3 so that it actually stops at 4. And if you're coming from this way, you need to provide 5 so that it actually stops at 4. Okay, so that's how you need to use the range method. Okay, so that's how you are able to go from 1 to n, and you're able to come backside as well. Okay, thank you. This session we want to print numbers starting from a number A, going till number B, which are multiples of 3. Right? Print all numbers starting from A, going till B, which are multiple of 3. Okay. So how do we do? How do we solve this one? Okay, perfect. So first of all, let's take A as input. Then let's take B as input. Perfect. Now we want to go from A till B, including B. So if I had to print all the numbers, what I would do is, for I in range, I'll start from A to go till B. I'm going to go to B plus 1. And my assumption here is, it's given in the problem that A is less than B, right? So we don't have to worry about the case that A is larger than B. So I need to start from A, I need to go till B. If I have to print all the numbers, I'll increment it by 1 and I'll print I. So let's 3 and 10. It's going to print numbers from 3 to 10. Perfect. Okay. Let's say I want to start from 3, go till 100 and print all the multiples of 3. One obvious way is, instead of incrementing it by 1, now I can increment it by 3. So instead of incrementing by 1, I will increment it by 3. Okay, let's run this. So 3 to 100, and it goes from 3 till 99, absolutely fine, works great, because it's printing all multiples of 3. But I don't think the logic is correct. For example, let me give it 1 to 10. It's printing 1, 4, 7, 10. These are not multiple of 3s. The problem here is, you are just saying, hey, start from 1, go till 10, and increment by 3. So it's printing 1, 4, 7, 10. It's not looking at whether these numbers are multiple of 3. It worked fine when you said 3 to 100, because the starting point is multiple of 3. 6 is also multiple, 9 is also multiple. So everything correctly got printed. How do we fix this? One easy solution is, I'll increment by 1, but I'll print only if the number I that I'm getting, that is divisible by 3. So print only if I is multiple of 3. I percentage 3 equal 0. So what's happening now? We are running a loop starting from 1, going till 10, incrementing by 1. So we're first going to 1, then we're going to 2, then we're going to 3, then we're going to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we are only printing it if it is actually a multiple of 3. This is a fine way of doing it. The only problem is that you're running the loop 10 times, then you actually have to do the work only 3 times. There are only 3 times that I want to print, but I'm doing the work 10 times, right? That's the only catch. Okay, so if you want to fix it further, if you don't like this particular solution, let me just copy this solution, because this is a good solution. This works fine. Now, what you're saying is, no, I don't want to increment by 1, I want to increment by 3, and I want that we should always print it. So we'll start from a multiple of 3. So to achieve this, we'll have to start from a multiple of 3, and we need to keep incrementing by 3 so that we keep getting multiples of 3. Okay, so how do we do this? Right? How do we do this? Okay, so basically, let's say A is 10, my starting number is 10, I have to go till 100. Then I should not start from 12. I should not start from 10. I should start from 12. Right? I should start from 12. Okay? And in case my starting number is 11, then I should, in that case also I should start from 12. In case my starting number is 12 itself, then I should start from 12 itself. So we'll have to put 3 different cases here and manage accordingly. So that basically means, let me put my start number. So if A percentage 3 equal 0, then my starting number will be A. Else if A percentage 3 is equal 1, for example in case of 10, then my starting number will be A plus 2. Why? Because if it is 10, modulo 3 will be 1. Then I just need to increment, I need to start it from 12. So I need to add to it. Take another example, take 7, modulus is 1. So you don't want to print 7 or 8, you want to print 9 first, right? So the starting point will be 9. So you need to increment by 2. Now, modulus 3 can be either 0 or 1 or 2. It cannot be anything else. Remainder when divided by 3 cannot be anything else, right? It can be 0, 1 or 2. So we just need an else for the case of when A percentage 3 equal 2. We don't have to put that condition, we can just put it inside else. Here, my starting number will be A plus 1. Example is 8. So if my starting number given to me is 8, I don't have to print 8, I want to print 9. So I want to increment it by 1. And then we will not start from A, we will start from S, which was our starting point. So let's run this. Let's give it 7, 200. So it starts from 9 and goes till 99. So it works absolutely fine. Okay, so this was one solution, which was lesser code, but it required, like the code was actually running multiple times, like the for loop was running a lot more times than actually required. Here we are writing a lot more code. We are basically doing some extra changes in the beginning in figuring out where to actually start from. So if you give me 10, I'm not going to start from 10. I'm going to start from 12 because I know 12 is a multiple of 3. If you give me 11, even then I'll start from 12. If you give me 5, I will start from 6. If you give me 9, I'll start from 9 itself. And then keep incrementing 3. And you know the end limit, which is b plus 9. Okay, so this should work absolutely fine. I hope this makes sense. Please practice running multiple types of for loops using range function, because that's going to be very important in whatever we'll be doing going forward. Okay, thank you. Hi. So in this session, I want to write code for a problem that we already solved. That is prime. So given a number, check if it is prime or not. Just to remind you, how did we solve that? So given a number n, we tried dividing this number starting from 2 till n minus 1. We tried to divide it by all of these numbers. And if any of them could divide it, we said that the number is not a prime. Otherwise, we said it is a prime number. Okay. So we'll use the same logic here, but we will use a for loop instead of using a while loop. So I'll get an input. Then I need to go from, my divider will be starting from 2. You need to go till n minus 1. So my stop will be n because I want to stop at n minus 1. And step is 1, so I can decide to give it or not give it. It's totally up to me. So for d in range. So this will basically give me, d will start from 2 and go up till n minus 1. So 2, 3, 4 up to n minus 1. So what do we need to do now? If n percentage d equal 0, then we obviously want to say that this is not a prime. So if you remember, we used something called a flag. We used a Boolean flag, which we took initially to be false. And flag basically represents, did it get divided by something? So initially, we haven't found anything which divides n. So we are putting it to false. But as soon as we find something which divides n, we will put our flag to be true. We'll put our flag to be true. We'll put our flag to be true. And just to remind you, right, like you don't have to do a d is equals to d plus 1 here. That is taken care by for loop and the range function. Okay. So once you're done with the for loop, you just need to check if flag, that means it got divided by something. So you need to print not prime, else you can print prime. Else you can print prime. So for loop basically makes things a little easier for us, right? We didn't have to initialize I with 0 or something. Then we, in the while we were writing I less than equal to or I less than n. Then we had to remember, like we always had to take care of that we are incrementing I. Otherwise it will end up in an infinite loop. So all those things get taken care by for loop and the range function. So we don't have to worry about all of that. We just think about all those things at one place and then we are done, right? So this, it's saying 10 is not a prime. 7 is a prime, and seems like this will work absolutely fine, right? So let's just review this one more time. So what have we done? Sorry. So what have we done? We were taking n as input. We took a d which goes from 2 to n minus 1, and we see if d can divide n. In case d can divide n, we just put a flag that, hey, it got divided. And once we're done with all the numbers, we check, did we divide by anything or not? Were we able to divide n by something or not? If we were able to divide it, then we'll say it's not a prime, otherwise we'll say it is a prime. Okay, perfect. So the idea was of this session was just to getting used to for loop a little more so that we are able to use it in problems that we've already solved earlier. Okay, thank you. Correct. So the tricky part. Hi. So in this session, I want to work a little more on for loops. So we'll pick up a pattern, which hopefully you have solved already. It was part of the previous lecture as something that you were supposed to do work upon. So we'll solve we'll print the same pattern, but using for loops. Okay. So the pattern I want to work upon is this. Right. So n is 4 in this case. So we have 4 rows, and each row, what's the pattern in each row? We have few spaces, then we have an increasing part, and then we have a decreasing part. Okay, we have an increasing part, then we have a decreasing part. Perfect. So spaces, increasing, and then decreasing, right? So how many spaces do we have? In the first row, you have 3 spaces. Second one, you have 2. Third one has 1. Last one has 0. I think we have n minus I spaces. N is 4. So first row has 4 minus 1, 3 spaces. Second one has 4 minus 2, 2 spaces. Third one has 4 minus 3, 1 space. And the last one has 4 minus 4, 0 spaces. increasing. So the first row starts from 1, second row starts from 2, the third row starts from 3, the fourth row starts from 4. So starting from 4, we need to go till, in the first row till 1, second row is 3, third row is 5, fourth row is 7. So if you look closely, you have to go till 2i minus 1 and you are increasing by 1, right? So it's starting from I. The first row is starting from 1, second row is starting from 2, third row is starting from 3, the last one is starting from 4. So it's starting from I going till 2i minus 1 with the increments of 1. What about the decreasing part? Okay, so it stopped at 2i minus 1 and I think it is starting from 2i minus 2, right? This was 2i minus 1, 1 less than that. The decreasing part is starting from 1 less than the end of increasing part. So 2i minus 2, it goes till I. So this is ending at 2, this is ending at 3, this is ending at 4 and so on. And we have to decrement by minus 1. That's basically what this pattern is. You have some spaces, increasing sequence. For increasing, we had to figure out where should we start from, where should we end. For the decreasing, we had to figure out the same thing. Where should we start from, where should we end, right? So let's write code for this. Perfect. Okay. So we take n as input. Then we need to print n rows. So I starts from 1 till n. So till n, that means n plus 1. And increment is by 1. So this is my row number which is going from 1 to n. For each row, now I'm at ith row. For each row, I need to first print spaces. So for S in range, how many spaces? How many spaces? N minus I, right? N minus I. So you can simply say n minus I here. Because if you say n minus I, basically you're saying your start is 0 and step is 1. So let's say n minus I was 3. That means I want to print 3 spaces. So this will start from 0, then it will go to 1, then it will go to 2, and it will not go to 3 because it stops 1 before that. So if you just say n minus I, it's going to repeat the loop n minus I times. If n minus I is 3, it's going to repeat the loop 3 times because it stops 1 earlier, but it starts from 0 as well. It does not start from 1 by default, right? Okay, so for I in range n minus I, for S in range n minus I need to print a space, and I don't want to take it to next line, so end is empty string. Spaces are done. Now the increasing part. For J in range, we know we want to start from I. We know we want to stop at 2i minus 1. So you want to stop at 2i minus 1, then you do 2i, right? 1 further than where you want to stop. So instead of stopping at 2i minus 1, it will stop at 2i minus 1 if you say stop to be 2i. It just stops before that. Okay, and the increment is 1. This is my increasing sequence. So I'm going to print J. End is again empty string. And now for the decreasing part, I want to start from 2 into I minus 2, right? I want to start from 2i minus 2. I want to go till I, and minus 1 is my step by how much I'm going to change after each iteration. So basically I am somewhere here and I'm moving in this direction and I want to reach till I should stop at I. If I want to stop at I need to provide I minus 1 as the stop value. So this has to be I minus 1 and the decrement has to be by minus 1. And I'll just print J, end will be empty string. I think this will print my row. I printed spaces, I printed increasing numbers, I printed decreasing numbers. I think this should do it. I just need to put a new line at the end. You don't have to do I is equals to I plus 1. You don't have to do j is equal to j plus 1. You don't have to do any of that. All that is taken care by range. And you have to be very careful while you are figuring out what are the values to be given to the range method. Okay, let's run this. And seems like that's absolutely correct. So the tricky part was not this. The tricky part was this. Figuring out we have to start where, we have to stop where, and what is the step. From where to start till where we want to go, and what is the step. That was the tricky part. And once we have that figured out, things become easy. Okay? Perfect. Please practice a lot using these concepts, because the more you practice, things will become easier for you. Okay? Thank you. Hi. So in the next few sessions, we'll be looking at few specific keywords, which basically are useful for loops as well as while loops. Okay. So the first keyword or statement that I want to look at is called break. So break is very interesting. Break. So basically, when do we stop our for loop or while loop? When we are done with all the elements in case of a for loop, or when we reach our terminating condition in case of while loop. Right? So if I decide I want to go from 1 to 10, I will go from 1 to 10 and repeat some work. Break basically lets you break out of this loop in case some specific condition is met. Right? In case of some specific condition is met. So for example, like how does while loop work? So you have some while condition and you have some code that you want to execute, and it will keep going this way, keep getting repeated. Condition is met, yes, repeat. Condition is not met, no. Then you basically go here and work on rest of the code, right? Break is basically another conditional. We'll generally apply a condition around it that if something happens, then break. In most of the cases, if you don't break, you continue in the loop. In case you break, you come out of the loop. So break is another way of terminating a loop in case you have met some specific condition. You have one way to break the loop is basically the condition that is for while, or all the elements in the sequence that we are supplying to for loop has been completely exhausted, right? But break is another way of terminating. Okay, perfect. So let's see. So this is, I'm going to change our prime function a little bit to show you how we can use break. I have the code here when we solve the prime problem using while loop, and here we are solving it using for loops. Okay. So we'll change it, but let's first quickly demo break by some dummy function. Okay. So let's say my I is 1, while I less than 10, I want to do something. Let's say I want to print I is equals to I plus 1. So you already know what's going to happen. It's going to print numbers from 1 to 9 because I less than 10. Now, what break will do is, if I say if I equal 5, break. Now what's going to happen is, this is saying keep doing the work till you reach 10. Don't do anything after 10 or on 10. But inside you're saying if you reach 5, break. That basically means the while loop is saying, hey, go inside for 1. It'll go inside. Is it 5? It's not 5. You'll come here, you'll print 1. And you'll make I to be 2. You'll go back again. 2 is less than 10. 2 is not 5. It'll print 2. 3. Yes, it'll print 4. It'll print 5. Now it becomes 5. It'll go here. 5 is less than 10. So we will go inside the loop. But 5 is equal to 5. So you will break the loop. As soon as you break the loop, you come out of the loop and you don't print anything else after that. Right? So we are printing only till 4. We are not printing 5. Because at 5, we decided to break the loop. We decided to cut the loop. Okay? So let's quickly change this function here, this code here, which is using while loop for finding out if a number is prime or not. Okay, let me tell you the problem with this function. So my problem with this function is, let's say I'm checking if 10 is prime or not. I start ds2 and my while says while d less than 10 because n is 10. Now you come inside, the first number you check that actually divides n. 2 is dividing n. So you set the flag to be true. Then you check for 3. Then you check for 4. Then you check for 5. Do you really need to do that? You already have 2 which divided your number. You don't have to check for anything else. What you could have done, you could have just decided to break the loop in case something divides n. Because as soon as I find one number which divides n, that's good enough for me. I don't have to find another number which divides n or not. I just need to find one number which divides n. That is enough for me to say that the number is not a prime. So what I'm suggesting is, do set the flag to be true. But once you set the flag to be true, there is no need to do any other additional work and you should break the loop. This is a much better code than we had written earlier. Because now the code is optimized to the fact that if I'm checking it for, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, huge number, right? I have a number which basically is this. I want to check if this is prime or not. I go ahead, divide it by 2. It gets divided by 2. And I say it's not a prime number. Previously, what we were doing is, we were dividing it by 2, then we were dividing it by 3, then we were dividing it by 4, and we were dividing it by this number to figure out that this is not a prime number. We already had the answer at the first number itself, here itself. But we still went on to divide it by a huge amount of numbers, and we got the same answer. So break will let you do optimizations and allow you to break the loop earlier if you want to. Okay, that's how break will work along with while loops. It works exactly the same way in for loops as well. Let me just copy this code. Let me run this. Not a prime. So still works fine. So here also, when you're setting the flag to be true, you could decide to break the loop, and it will break your while loop. It will break your for loop, right? So break works exactly the same way for loop as well as while. If you want, I can show you the difference in how fast or slow these two are. So for example, this one, where I did decide to break it, let's try this number. It says not a prime. Quickly, it says not a prime. Let's see here. And it's still running. It's going to take a long time before it tells us that it's not a prime. So it took a long time to figure out that it is not a prime. So it is doing a lot of work which was not really required. So break is letting you get out of the loop if you don't need to run the loop anymore. Okay, just break out of the loop if you don't need to run the loop anymore. Okay, just one small thing that I want to tell you in case of break is, let's say I have two loops. I have one while and I have another while inside it, right? So if I put a break inside the inner while loop, it will break the inner while loop. It will not break the outer while loop. So break will basically break the while loop that is just outside of this break, right? Just before this break. So if break is inside this while loop, it will break this while loop and not the while loop above it. Okay, not the while loop above it. So just for practice, let's print all the prime numbers from 2 to n. This is something that we've done already, right? Let's print all the prime numbers from 2 to n. Okay, so my n is this. Perfect. So what else do we need to do? Now let's take a d which starts from 2. Not d, let's take a k. This is the number that I'm trying to check if it is a prime or not. K less than equal to n. So now within this while loop, I want to check if k is prime or not. I need to check if k is prime or not. So to check k is prime or not, I want to start a d, and I'm going to go take this d less than k, right? I want to take this d for less than k. So to check if k is prime or not, I want to divide k by number starting from 2 till k minus 1. Okay. So we'll check if k is divided by d. In that case, we will have a flag. So let's take a flag which is false here. I'll set the flag to be true, and I can break the loop because I don't have to do this work anymore. Now once you're done with this while, you can check if flag, if not flag, right? Basically, if flag is not true, that means flag is false, that means nothing divided k, and I can say k, I can just print k. That means k is a prime number, and I need to increment k by k plus 1, right? So here we used a break. This break is inside. There was one while loop. There was another while loop. But this break will basically break this while. It will not impact the outer while. Okay. Let's say k is my n is 10. So k will start from 2. It will go till 10 less than equal to n. Let's say at certain point k is 6. So I'll start d from 2 and I'll take it till 5. I want to divide by all of these to figure out if nothing is dividing 6. In that case, 6 is a prime number. But for 2 itself, 6 is divisible by 2. So I'm going to set the flag to be true and I'm going to break the loop because I don't have to divide by 3 to 5. Just because 2 is dividing 6, that's good enough for me to figure out that 6 is not a prime number. And the rest of the code is exactly what we had written. Perfect. Let's run this. So it's saying that 2, 3, 5 and 7 are the prime numbers. Okay. So the only idea that I wanted you to understand from this code is that when you put a break inside a while loop, it's going to impact that while loop and not while loops outside that particular range. Okay. Thank you. Hi. So in this session, I want to look at a very interesting keyword, which in most of the languages is used only with if and not with for loop or while loop. It's called else. So we generally use else along with if, along with else if, but we generally don't use it with for or while loop. But in case of Python, you can actually use an else with the loops as well. Okay. So what does else mean along with loops? So let's say I have a while. So some while condition. I can put an else along with it. This basically means I'll keep going through this while loop till the point this condition is true, right? That's how it works, right? Till the point this condition, while this condition is true, I'll keep repeating this. As soon as this condition is negated, this becomes false, the while loop finishes. But if you have an else, the code will actually come inside the else. It's basically like saying as soon as the condition becomes false, you will come inside the else. Okay, so if you put an else along with a while, generally what will happen is whatever you write inside while, this will keep running till this condition is true. As soon as the while loop is over, this else will be run once. It will be run for one time. For one time, this else code will run for you. Okay, so let's quickly see a demo for that. Right, ignore the code that I've written already. So let's quickly write a demo for this. So let's say I is equals to 1, while I less than 10. I want to print I, and I want to say I is equals to I plus 1. So if I do this, I'll see numbers from 1 to 9 because I less than 10. I can put an else along with this while, and I can say this will be printed once at the end. So, sorry, we forgot to do I is equals to I plus 1 somehow. So it prints numbers from 1 to n, and in the end it says this will be printed at the end. So else runs only once. Let's see what happens with a for loop. So for I in range 1 to 10, so it will also go from 1 to 9. I want to print I. This will print numbers from 1 to n. But if I put a else, and let's say I say this will also be printed once at the end, and it also gets printed only once at the end, right? Now it's a little weird right now, right? Like, why would I need this? What is the difference between this code and let's say this code? Here also, this for loop will run, and in the end only once this will be run. This statement will be run only once. So the output will exactly be the same as the output from this particular for loop. So why do you need this else? Because once the loop is over, you will execute the next line for once only, right? Like you'll execute the next line only once. So why do we need this else? So this else becomes interesting when you use it along with break. So this basically means if I have a while and an else, now I can come out of this while loop in two ways. See, this is my condition. So I can come out in two ways. One, condition is false now, or I have hit a break statement, right? So we can come out of this while loop either because this condition is false or because we have encountered a break. The interesting point is you will come inside else only if this condition has been violated. That basically means you will hit the else only if the while loop has not been broken by the break statement. Let me repeat. So else, code inside else will not be executed if while or for loop is finished because of break statement, right? If your while or for has been terminated because of a break statement, the else statement will not be done. Okay? For example, let's say if I equal 5 and I want to break, in this case, the else code is not run. We are not running the code inside else because this loop has been terminated because of this break statement and not because you have completed the for loop. If you complete the for loop without hitting the break statement, you will reach the else. Otherwise, you will not reach the else. Okay? So else is very interesting. Let me repeat myself. Else code will not be executed if your loop is terminated because of a break condition. Okay? So let's see how we can use it. I think we can improve our prime code. First we had the prime code, then we improved it by using break statement. Now I think we can improve it further by using else. Okay? So let me just copy this code. Perfect. Now, one thing that I don't like about this code is this flag thing, right? It's a little dirty, it's a little complicated. So I don't want to use a flag, right? I don't want to use a flag. So what you can do here is, you can put an else. You can put an else. And when will you go inside else and when will you not go inside else? When will you go inside else? You will go inside else only if you have run through the whole loop without hitting this break statement. That means you will go inside else if no number could divide n, if nothing could divide n. Only in that case you will go inside else. So if I just have to print if n is a prime, or if let's say I want to print only if n is prime, I am not going to print anything if n is not a prime. So then I can simply say prime numbers, because I'll come inside else only if the for loop has actually completed. And if the for loop has actually completed, that basically means that we have gone through all the numbers and nothing could divide n. Only then the for loop will not terminate because of break. Okay, in that case you can say it's a prime number. So if I give 10, it will not print anything. If I give it 13, it will print that it is a prime number. Okay, so else is actually useful. You can use it whenever you want to. It will work along with the for loop as well as the while loop. Okay, so again, to remember what else will do or not, you'll have to practice a little. And I think the concept is pretty straightforward. As soon as the condition becomes false, if it was a if, it would go into else. Exactly the same way. If the reason for while or for to finish is that the condition has been completed and the reason is not hitting a break statement, then you will execute the code which is inside the else statement. Okay? Perfect. Thank you. Hi. So in this session, I want to talk about our next keyword, which is continue. So continue is generally similar to break, but they are very different in some ways, right? So break is used when you want to break the loop. And continue is used when you want to skip an iteration. When you want to skip an iteration. Okay. So for example, let's say I tell you that, hey, I want you to go from 1 to 100, do some work, repeated work, right? Let's say this is our repeated code. You need to do it for all the numbers from 1 to 100 except for 29. I don't like 29. So you should not do this work for 29, but do it for everything else starting from 1 to 100. Right? So now you will, if you write your for loop, you will say for I in range 1 to 101, increment of 1. And you will write your repeated code here. But it will run for 29 as well. So basically, what I want to do is, I don't want to do this work in case of 29. So I can just simply say, if I equal 29, then I can continue. And as soon as I say continue, sorry, I don't need the semicolon. This is a bad habit, not a bad habit, this is a habit from C++ Java. Okay, so as soon as I say continue, it will basically go to the top of the loop again and pick the next number. Okay, it'll pick the next number. So the loop is for I in range 1 to 101. Why 101? Because it will stop at 100 then. And this is my repeated code. So if I equal 29, in that case I want to continue. And as soon as I say this, it will do the work, repeated work for 1 to 28. For 29 it will skip it, because as soon as it hits a continue, it does not break the loop, but it will go to the beginning of the loop and pick up the next element. So it will go to 30, right? It will not do this work for 29. Interestingly, let's say I want from 1 to 100, I want to do two kind of work, repeated code 1, repeated code 2. This happens for all the numbers from 1 to 100. This should be done only for odd numbers. Only for odd numbers. Then what I can do is, for I in range 1 to 101, step by 1, RC1, you do it irrespective. We have to do this. Now, we have to do RC2 as well, but only if we are at odd numbers. In that case, what you can do is, you can write if I percentage 2 equal 0, that means you have hit a even number, you can write continue. So what will happen? You come inside for 1, this runs, continue is not hit because this condition is not met, RC2 is also executed. But the next time you come inside for I is equals to 2, RC1 is executed, but this condition is met and you do continue, that means RC2 will not be executed. As soon as you hit continue, you will basically go to the top. So it's not that all of the code will be skipped, all the code below continue will be skipped for that particular iteration. Okay, just that. Okay, so let's quickly write a very simple code, right? A very simple code. I want to print all even numbers except which are multiple of 7. Okay, all even numbers till n. Okay, so I'll take an n input, and for I in range, I want to go start from, let's say 2. I want to go till n, so n plus 1. All even numbers, so I'll do additions of 2, steps of 2. And I want to print them. If I do this, I'll print all the even numbers till n, right? But if I give 100, it's also printing 14, which is a multiple of 7. We need to avoid multiple of 7s, multiples of 7. Okay. So using continue, what you can do is, if it is divisible by 7, then continue, right? Then continue. So this basically means I'll come inside the loop for all the numbers, but if it is a multiple of 7, I will not go to the print statement, right? I'll not go to the print statement. So this will be done only if I don't hit the continue. Does not mean I'm going to break the loop. So it's going to skip 14, but it's going to come again at 16. So let's do it again. So you don't see a 14 here, you don't see a 28 here, you don't see 42 here, and so on. Okay, so we'll basically skip all multiples of 7. And let's say I want to print all the even numbers twice, but multiple of 7 should get printed only once. all the even numbers should be printed twice. So let's print all the even numbers twice. Let me copy some of this code. So print I. So all the even numbers are printed twice. But I want all multiples of 7 should be printed only once, not twice. In that case, the first print can be before continue, and now I will check. If this is the case, I will continue. That basically means first print will always be done, but the second print will be done only if it's not a multiple of 7. Okay, so everything is printed twice, 14 is printed only once, 28 is printed only once, and so on. Okay, and you can do exactly the same thing with a while loop as well. Okay, let me just copy this code and convert this into a while loop. Sorry. So basically, I starts from 2, I less than equal to n, and I need to do I is equals to I plus 2. Okay, I need to do I is equals to I plus 2. This is actually interesting. You'll see a problem here. Okay, so what should happen? It should start from 2, it should come inside, it should print 2, then it should become 4, then it should go, then it should come back again because 4 is, let's say n is 10. So n is less than 4 is less than equal to 10, n is 10. So it prints 4, I become 6, prints 6, prints 8, prints 10, and we should be done, right? And that's how, sorry, this should be while, not for. So it works fine for 10, but I think there'll be a problem if I give it 100. Seems like it's stuck in an infinite loop. It's not printing anything, but this is still star, that means it's still running. What's the problem? The problem is it has reached 12, so it came inside, printed 12, it became 14. It went back. 14 is less than equal to 100, so that's perfect. It went inside the while loop. 14 is divisible, so you said continue, but as soon as you said continue, it went to the top of the while loop. 14 is still less than equal to 100, it came inside again, it's still 14, so 14 is still divisible by 7, it again continues, again goes back to the top. So the problem is this I is equals to I plus 2 is also skipped in case of a while loop. In case of a for loop, it took care of incrementing for us. But in case of a while loop, you are supposed to take care of incrementing the number. So it got stuck because of continue, basically skipping the increment part as well. So let me stop this. Okay. One simple solution will be that you increment it before doing continue. You increment it before you do the continue. So that way, whenever you're doing a continue, you are still incrementing it. You're not skipping the increment. Okay. So that's how you can use continue in case of a while loop. An interesting thing that we found was that we have to be a little more careful while we're using while loop because we should not miss the increment part. Okay. Perfect. So we've seen break, we have seen else, we have seen continue. These three are very, very important to basically, break will help you optimize your code. It will help you stop your while loop or for loop whenever you don't have to run it anymore. Else is basically just to make your code a little neater, right? And continue will also help you structure your code in a better way. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hi. So in this session, I want to talk about a keyword called pass. So pass is a keyword that we'll be using, that we can use along with loops. Honestly, I don't think it's very useful, but it's there in Python, so let's learn about it. So pass will basically let you pass a loop, right? So let me just tell you what it is. You can use it with if as well. So in case of C++ Java, what you can do is you can write a code like this. If I less than 7, we put brackets. We don't write anything inside. That means don't do anything, right? So you're able to say if I is less than 7, don't do anything. So you don't have anything inside the if, which doesn't really make sense a lot. You will write something within the if, right? Like why, otherwise why do you want to have an if? Anyways, this is allowed. But in case of Python, what you cannot do is this. Let's say I don't want to do anything of this, right? This is an error. So in Java, I could have written if, and then I could have written some other code, which is not inside the if. So I would have written, let's say, print hey. This would have meant that I don't want to do anything in case of this, right? But this is still an error. So Python is saying, you have written if. You want to do something inside that, right? So Python is saying that you need to do something inside if the if statement or a while loop or a for loop, you would have to do something inside. In case you want to say, hey, I'm not interested in doing anything inside this if, but for some reason I want to write it, then you can write a pass. So pass is basically just a dummy statement which you can use in case you don't want to write anything inside that if or inside the while or inside the for, you can use pass. A very good use case of pass is in case I want to structure my code. I don't want to write the insides of my while loop, if loop, or sorry, not if loop, if statement, but I want to make the basic structure that, hey, I'll have these two loops, and in this I'll be checking whether if this will be doing something or not. In those cases, pass can be a temporary like statement that you can use to basically tell yourself, I need to do something here. This is a to-do for me. I need to do something here. For now, I'm writing pass, but eventually I'll come back and actually write something. Okay. So in those cases, you can use pass. And the way we have seen, we can use it with if. You can also use it with while. Okay. Any problem with this code? Yes, there is a problem with this code. Sorry, I forgot the colon. So there is a problem with this code. You're not incrementing I. So even if you're writing pass, you will have to increment I, because otherwise it will keep passing. It's going to keep running the while loop. So you still need to do this, which basically means the pass is even more useless. Right? I think it might make a little more sense in case of for I in range 1 to 4. I don't know what I want to write here, so I'm going to pass it for now. Okay, I'm going to pass it for now. So pass just means that this is a dummy that I want to use sometime later. Okay, that I want to write some code later on. Or if you can find some other use case, that is fine as well. It's generally used when you have to provide something for that if to work or for that for to work, then you'll just write pass there. Okay, thank you.